What the F is this? Tales of Warcraft, some things you've never noticed in World of Warcraft. A lot of us have been playing this game for a long time. 20-plus year veterans sitting here. Many of you have been playing this game for, over 10 years. And there's a lot of things in this game that you still discover from time to time. Let's see what Nixium has discovered here. Something that a lot of us have probably missed. Here we go. Let's get into this one.
I've been playing World of Warcraft for over 20 years, and recently I discovered something in this game that, despite all my time playing it, I have never noticed before. Many things, in fact, that I just completely overlooked, and maybe you did too. Today, I want to talk about the very bizarre burial customs that you can find all across Azeroth.
Burial customs? I mean, a lot of people just use tombstones and graves like we do. I know, interesting. Okay, we'll see what he found, I guess.
To begin this video, let's just do a little quiz, shall we? If you were to go to many of the graveyards across Azeroth, you will see that many of them have these wooden markers to mark graves. Does anybody know off the top of your head what this symbol means by chance?
I've never
It's
really
all
thought
over the
about
game, but have you ever stopped to think what it is? Well,
it's like a circle with a stick through. I mean, yeah, I know this. I've seen this many times before, but I never really thought about that it has a meaning or something.
I will tell you, this is the symbol of the Church of the Holy Light. Each culture in World of Warcraft has its own way of burying and honoring the dead. This is Azeroth. It's full of many diverse peoples and races and such, and so of course they all have their own unique customs. Now, when it comes to humans and Forsaken, dwarves, and gnomes, they're pretty generic. It's just generic tombstones, nothing special. Sometimes they might have a monument or something placed in a grave, but these grave sites look very familiar to our own in real life. But let's talk about orcs, for example, because there's two different approaches that they take to doing a funeral. So if you travel across...
Are Death Knights buried? Well, they were once buried. A lot of them. Yeah, not anymore.
Azeroth to orc-centric zones, and you look at their graveyards, you will see that the first way that they bury their dead is that they usually will put them in the ground and they will mark the location with a stone of some sort. You can see this in Durotar, for example, right outside of Razor Hill. It's just a large stone indicating that someone is buried here, and usually the orcs will then decorate this stone with the warrior's armor, their weapons, and maybe some war trophies that this particular orc might have collected during their lifetime. You can even see in some places that they have stacked a large amount of skulls next to the orc's grave, which is maybe this particular orc's collection of enemies.
Yeah, these look like human skulls, I think. I don't think those are orc skulls. They don't have like the teeth that orc has, so... This probably is kills.
Skulls that they had during their life, which is now sitting next to their grave to show what a great warrior they are. However, there's another way that orcs bury their dead, and I'm sure that many of you probably don't know about this one off the top of your head, and that is the crate method. Across Azeroth in Classic WoW, again, if you go to some orc-centric areas, you will find this second method on display. One example of it is...
See, that's an orc skull. It's got the fang teeth there.
Right outside of the Barrens, you can find another outside of Stonard and in some other places. But this second method is where apparently what the orcs will do is they will take the deceased body and cut the head off of the warrior or the shaman or whoever it is, and they will place the head on top of a crate while still inside of the helmet that this particular warrior wore during their life. And the rest of the body is then placed inside a crate, and then the crate is decorated with war gear and trophies.
It's gotta smell bad though, doesn't it? I mean, that's just that eventually the thing's gonna rot and fester. They got there's these crates of dead bodies everywhere. These must be like ironclad sealed crates that don't leak or something.
Skulls and so on and so forth. from the orc's time as a warrior. It was actually me discovering this very bizarre custom that made me decide to make this video. Originally, I first saw this in the Barrens, and I just thought it was some weird decor decision or something in regards to this graveyard. But then I went to other orcish locations in the world and found that this is actually a burial custom for the orcs, which is very bizarre. Imagine cutting the head off of your father, for example, after he's dead, and then leaving his head on top of a box to be eaten by maggots and flies.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It probably wasn't a skull when they put it there. It's like just a decapitated head sitting on top of the crate. You just look at it every time you walk by. That's weird.
While the rest of his body is rotting inside of a wooden crate. But apparently this is a thing that is a part of orcish culture. And if you guys know where maybe Blizzard took inspiration from for this idea, because Blizzard, of course, is always taking inspiration from real life cultures and peoples and stuff, let me know down in the comments section below. But since we're talking about orcs, let's talk about trolls, because trolls seem to have a very like a variety of ways of burying their dead in Azeroth. So the most common way that we can see in places like Sinjin Village and Razor Hill and in other places in Kalimdor and the Eastern Kingdoms is that the trolls will actually mummify the body of their deceased. And then after doing so, they will place the corpse within a very large urn, which they will then fill with sand. Now the body will be left half exposed to dry out in the sun and in the elements, but after this is done, the urn is usually placed at some sort of location, maybe in front of a large stone or some sort of tablet or whatever, and then the urn is decorated with weapons and other keepsakes that most likely this...
Yeah, they do the weapon thing like the orcs do. So there's weapons and shields everywhere, and then it's a bucket of dirt. Okay.
Particular troll
that's how the Loa
had
like it,
during their life. One thing that makes trolls unique, however, compared to orcs, is that we can see evidence in some areas of Azeroth that the trolls will leave grave offerings to their dead, like grain, or maybe even these beautiful pieces of pottery. However, similar to the orcs, it seems the trolls also have the habit of putting a lot of skulls next to their grave sites. So maybe this is a common cultural connection where orcs and trolls during their life, they will actually gather the skulls of their enemies, and then when they are dead.
I wonder if the different troll tribes do things, because this is like this has got to be Darkspear or something, because that's, I mean, that's where it looks like the background is. He's in a Darkspear troll village. So I wonder how the Amani or the what am I drawing a blank on the the other freaking troll races, the Darkspear, the Amani, the forest trolls, all these other guys, the Zandalari, how they bury their dead.
These skulls are put on display at their grave sites to show what great warriors they were in their life. Now, one thing that is different compared to orcs, though, and this is just purely a theory, is that there's another type of way that trolls are buried, and this is usually right next to the mummified body in the urn technique. And that is to have some sort of grave marker, like a stone or something, and then to just have a mask.
Hold on. I just saw something. What the hell is going on here? We got a boulder, and then a long, shafty-looking rock here. And then same thing, a boulder, and then a long, shafty-looking rock. You're going to tell me these devs didn't do this on purpose? You going to tell me my mind is in the gutter, or this shit wasn't done on purpose? Yeah.
To have some sort of grave marker, like a stone or something, and then to just have a mask or a weapon to signify that a troll is buried there.
It's very obvious that's what they did there.
No urn, no sand, no mummy. I theorize that maybe this is possibly a female troll's grave, because if you look at the trolls that are in the urns, these are all males. So maybe this is what they do for females. Females are not left out in the sun to bake and decay like the males are. Now, why do they do this? Not entirely sure, but I think this would be a very interesting thing that trolls do within their culture. It should also be noted that in places like Stranglethorn Vale, there are lots of troll villages that contain a ton of skulls, and I have theorized in previous videos here on Tales of Warcraft that maybe these skulls are not necessarily dead enemies, but maybe they belong to these trolls' ancestors, and they are kept around so that way maybe troll witch doctors and stuff can commune with the dead, they can consult with their ancestors, or maybe even having their ancestral bones nearby gives to their troll witch doctors great power. There's also the possibility that these trolls in Stranglethorn Vale eat their dead, but you never know.
Yeah,
that's just theory crafting. Let's take a break, however, and let's talk about the Alliance, specifically Night Elves. Night Elves, unlike humans and dwarves and gnomes in classic WoW, they have very unique graveyards that I think are very tranquil and very beautiful, and also have a lot of inspiration behind them from pagan cultures of the past.
I will say, Night Elf architecture, music, all that is like, it's nostalgic as shit for me, because my first character I ever made in WoW was a Night Elf hunter, right? Because I wanted to be Legolas from Lord of the Rings. And so all these older Night Elf zones and the music and everything, those get me. So I actually never paid attention, though. How do they bury their dead when I was running through those zones?
So unlike your generic tombstones that you would find in a human cemetery, Night Elves tend to bury their dead underneath these very large stones, some of them even containing magical moonlight of a loon. It's even possible that maybe these stones that contain the light of a loon, maybe a priest or a priestess was buried here. We don't know. Across Kalimdor, there's also a lot of these like bird bath-like fountain things that contain holy water of a loon, usually placed right at the center of the graveyard. It's probably even a Night Elf custom that people will come here, pour moonwell water into this fountain, and this is a way of blessing the dead or something. You can also see very large pitchers often at these locations. I suspect that Blizzard is taking some big inspiration from like old pagan cultures here. I would think that at times these pitchers contain drink offerings to the dead, similar to how in Germanic paganism from Europe, it was a very common thing to do where you would go to a grave and give offerings of mead, milk, honey, flowers, or whatever to the dead or to the gods or even to the elves during holidays like Alphablot. And I think that these large pitchers are probably Night Elves doing the exact same thing, pouring wine or something onto their ancestors' stones. I think that's very likely.
What if they're used to like clean the stones? I know that's very ritualistic in a lot of cultures to go clean the gravestones. So maybe they're cleaning these rocks with this water from these things.
There's even these unlit braziers that you can find in some graveyards in Kalimdor, which I suspect are used during particular festivals at certain times of the year to honor or even communicate with the dead. It is something that is believed in many pagan cultures that light, fire in the dark tends to attract spirits. So having a brazier like this in a graveyard and lighting it maybe on a certain day in the middle of the night would attract the spirits of the dead so that they could be communicated with, or you could just sit within their presence for a little while. That's what I think this brazier is here for. Lastly, if you go to places like Aberdyne or even Feathermoon Stronghold, another thing that you can find that makes Night Elf graves very unique are idols. Sometimes the idol is in the center of the graveyard instead of that Moonwell water fountain that we talked about earlier.
Looks like.
Sometimes the idol will be in the center, or maybe it will be off to the side. These idols probably represent a local land spirit or land deity of some sort that acts as a protector of the graveyard. Again,
and the owl, obviously, that's well, is a big symbol for the Night Elves. That thing's always around. It's like the overseer, the overwatcher. It's almost like a symbolism for a loon. I mean, Tyrande in all of Shadowlands, right? She had the owl following her around. And it even followed her into the Shadowlands. So it seems like it's something that can cross over. At least in terms of that lore from the Shadowlands, it was following her there and coming back with her. So the owl is a big thing for the Night Elves.
very common pagan practice, even in old Germanic Europe, of having an idol of some sort that is present at a location that acts as the guardian of that location.
Maybe
and
the
of
owl
course,
is the
this
guardian,
idol, being so close to the dead, would probably even be used in religious ceremony to the dead. Maybe wine, alcohol, blood, or something would be poured on this idol. The spirit that it's supposed to represent would be invoked, that maybe acts as a bridge between the living and the dead. We don't know, but the point is that you can find idols at Night Elf grave sites, and I find this to be very fascinating because Night Elves, of course, have a deep connection with the spirits of the land, just like Germanic pagans did back in the day with their relationship to the elves and the dwarves and other types of Landvatir. As a final note on Night Elves, however, you can actually see that in Fellwood, there is a graveyard in the south that has no tombstones. However, it does have a fount of a loon still in the center with some corrupted light. And this makes you wonder, did the Legion possibly dig up the dead bodies here and discard them? Or maybe did the Legion get rid of the stones that used to be placed here? I don't know if Blizzard thought this deeply into it, but we've talked a lot about Germanic paganism because interactions with the elves, or keeping elves away, was such a big part of those people's belief system. And a place that elf spirits were said to dwell within, or a thing that could be a place of great power, is a stone. Even in Iceland today, there are many people that believe that elves live in certain stones that can be found across the country. And in the past, it was very common for Northern European pagans to go to stones that were believed to have power within them, to be a location where oaths were sworn or ceremonies were done, rituals were performed, so on and so forth. It was even common for each household to have a large stone on their property, which was called a haminga stone. And the luck, the good fortuneness of that land was tied into that particular stone.
I had no idea.
I don't want to go into a whole history lecture on this topic.
That's cool.
But I think it is interesting that the Legion got rid of the stones in this graveyard, maybe implying that Blizzard wrote the Night Elves as believing something very similar. Stones that contain the spirits of their ancestors actually have power to influence things, power to change events in the land, and so the Legion dug these stones up and possibly destroyed them.
Yeah, it looks like they desecrated that site that he was showing there earlier. I wouldn't be surprised. The Legion would do shit like that for sure. Sam, can we watch a video tomorrow about interbreeding in World of Warcraft or not? Well, I mean, that does happen. We know that. Hallowfall... in Hallowfall, all the human elves, right? That their entire freaking group is a half-breed group. But I don't know if we can get into that. Erator's a half-breed too. If there's ever a video about it, sure, I'd watch it.
Keep in mind too that these unique
humans and pandas, I don't know if that's happened. A lot of human elf fuckery going around. Humans and pandas, I don't know.
burial customs in Warcraft.
We're talking furries now.
Lore are not just restricted to the playable races. You can even find it with NPCs and even monsters in the world. For example, from the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, we learned that whenever a dragon is near to the end of its life, it will fly to Dragonblight, and there, among the snow,
the skeletons are
it
there.
will die. And that's why if you wander around that zone, you can see dragon skeletons everywhere. But back in original Classic WoW, we learned things like the Kodo. The Kodo will actually wander all the way from Mulgore, the Barrens, wherever they are. They will travel all the way to Desolus, to this Kodo graveyard in the center of the zone.
That's a very elephant-like thing. There's elephant graveyards. All the elephants that can manage to get to the graveyard, they all go there to die. The Kodos, I guess, take up the same tradition in their minds.
And this is where they will die. And you can find Kodo skeletons all along the way in their great migration just to reach this location of their final rest. And I find this to be very fascinating as it makes the world feel so alive.
Yeah, it does.
Speaking of Tauren, though, let's go to Mulgore because Tauren also have a very unique custom with how they treat their dead. If you've ever gone to...
I would assume, I don't know, by the way, what he's going to say, but I would assume Tauren, like, burn their dead. I don't know what it is, like the sprinkling of the ashes in the original cinematic. That's what that makes me think of. Like they must ritualistically like burn and spread the ashes on the land return to the Earth Mother kind of stuff.
A Tauren graveyard in this zone or in the Barrens, you'll find that what the Tauren will do is they will wrap up their dead in cloth. And then after building a small elevated platform, they will leave the bodies of Tauren out in the sun to slowly decay.
Hell, see, I don't pre-watch. I didn't know
because the Tauren, they revere the Earth Mother, but they also have a great love for the sun. And so having these bodies on these elevated platforms that ward off local wildlife, and having these Tauren permanently looking up towards the sun and the moon, I think it's very beautiful.
Like the Native Americans. Yeah, I mean, the Tauren, obviously, they take a lot of inspiration from Native American culture.
But there's another thing, too, about Tauren burials that I've never heard anybody talk about. And it's the fact that in some locations, you can see that when a Tauren dies, there is a bowl with a bunch of Kodo bones that are put next to him. You can even find bowls stained with blood near Tauren grave sites right beside these large amounts of Kodo bones that sit in bowls or bags beside the corpse. Either this was just a sacrificial Kodo, or maybe this was the Tauren's Kodo mount during his life, which...
That's what I was thinking. Maybe it was their mount or something, because we know the Kodos, that's their racial mount.
Was sacrificed so that his master can forever ride his mount among the plains of the Earth Mother. In my opinion, this makes perfect sense, since in so many pagan cultures, whenever somebody would die, somebody of great wealth or significance, you would sacrifice a horse over this person's grave to allow them a steed to ride into the halls of their forefathers. You can also find weapons and kites that are left at Tauren graves, along with food offerings, just like the trolls. And so far, we've covered the core races of Classic WoW. We've talked about humans and Forsaken, dwarves and gnomes with their generic stuff, night elves and trolls and orcs and Tauren. But what about Draenei and blood elves that were introduced in TBC? I mean, TBC Anniversary is going on right now at the time of me making this video. Let's talk about the Draenei, and then you'll get to see how bizarre the Blood Elves are. Similar to humans and dwarves, Draenei also do tombstones, but theirs are very unique. And you can often find that Draenei have been leaving flowers at their graveyards as gifts for the departed. I think it's also interesting that there's always benches and lanterns nearby at their grave sites, which suggests that maybe the Draenei spend a lot of time with their dead.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Again, not pre-watched, I swear. I would not fucking say this shit before he says it if I knew he was going to say it, because that makes it look like I pre-watched it. Okay? But yeah, that's exactly what I thought. When he said all these lanterns and benches and stuff, it means clearly they spend time at the graveyards, which makes sense. They're very spiritual people, the Draenei. So yeah, they spending time with the spirit realm. Okay.
Late even into the evenings, hence the lantern. And maybe being under the stars with their lost loved ones here on Azeroth, maybe in a way it reminds them of home, very, very far away across the cosmos. The Draenei also tend to put these little vases with a burning ember at the top at the site of their graves, and maybe this is a reminder that their loved one's spirit still burns on even after death. And as a final note, and this one is very unique, Draenei have these small structures that they appear to bury their dead in. It's like tiny mausoleums, I think these are supposed to be, containing multiple Draenei or their families, and you can find this at many of their graveyards. But before we talk about the Blood Elves and their strange burial custom, I will say that if you're enjoying the video, please give it a like, and if you really enjoy the video, please consider subscribing, because it really does help the channel. And now, that all said, let's talk about the Sin'dorei. When I was making this video, I flew out to Quel'Thalas, and what I found gave to me great pause, because I thought maybe I had missed something or I was overlooking something obvious. But Blood Elves, whether you're in Quel'Thalas or you go to Outland, they have nothing. If you go from graveyard to graveyard in Sin'dorei areas, there is nothing really to tell you that this is even a graveyard at all. The only thing that you get is there's these structures that tend to imply that people are buried there, maybe in a mass grave or something, but there's no tombstones, there's no grave offerings, no flowers, no benches, really nothing. It's
That's what I was thinking. I was like, these look like mass grave sites. So they just bury a bunch of people in mass. I mean, it could be that they don't really mark the graves. Maybe these are mass burial sites from, you know, when the Lich King came and destroyed everything, and basically, what is it, 90% of their population died off in a day. So maybe that's why they do this mass burial site stuff, is they just kind of, this is what became their tradition after they had to bury so many bodies at one time. Could be it.
just an empty little spot that apparently is a graveyard. Now, maybe that's just Blizzard's laziness, but maybe, hear me out, perhaps their society being so full of themselves like they are, maybe they tend to cover up death a lot, making sure that death is not really seen by the common man.
Maybe they also live a very long time. So yeah, I mean, death is not as it's not thought about probably as much as, like, say, human death is, where, you know, we're wondering when we're gonna die. The average age, you know, 70s and 80s, 90s. Okay, like that's when people really start to think about it a lot. If you're an elf who's gonna live hundreds of years, death doesn't even cross your mind. You'd be 200 years old. You're not thinking about death. You still got another probably 200 years to go. So it's definitely something they probably consider less, because their society just lives so long.
They don't want people to be thinking about this or to be aware of it, because they want them instead to believe themselves immortal with their long elven lives. They have nothing to worry about. They are blessed. They live in a beautiful kingdom. Death is something far away from their minds. And if that's true, you know, it makes the tragedy of Warcraft 3 all the more, in my opinion, deep. An undead scourge attacking Silvermoon City, where the people have no relationship to death at all outside of maybe stories and myths of fallen heroes.
Yeah.
Imagine living 1,000 years, feeling like you'll live forever because of the wondrous kingdom that you live in and the magic that you meddle in every day, and suddenly death itself arrives at your doorstep. It would be terrifying.
Interesting.
And the fact that the Dead Scar goes straight through the heart of Silvermoon City in TBC, it shows how the Scourge quite literally ripped the world of the Blood Elves in half. So was it Blizzard's laziness that made them do nothing with these graveyards? Possibly. But it could also be a technique of visual storytelling if you take a moment to look into it. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, because this is old Blizzard we're talking about with TBC. As time has gone on, graveyards just tend to be very generic nowadays in the modern game. There really isn't much to say about them, and this channel is more focused on original World of Warcraft lore, so...
Well, I mean, to be fair, the original world did have a lot more detail in it. It did. And that's one reason why some people just really love classic WoW. It's the immersion of the world. There's so many hidden details everywhere and everything. And I'm not saying the current worlds aren't nice. They are. But like these little things and cultural things and basically the base world that existed back then, it's crazy how much stuff you can find that the Blizzard dev team put in back then when they were really making this game that they weren't even sure if it was going to be popular or not.
I do appreciate you guys watching this video, because I find this subject to be very fascinating, since I never noticed all of these strange burial customs in all the years that I've been playing WoW. And if you want more examples of visual storytelling in World of Warcraft, there are 2 videos on your screen right now, one about the Eastern Kingdoms, one about Kalimdor, showing fantastic examples of visual storytelling that Blizzard did in both of these continents. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you with my next one.
Yeah, nice video overall. I mean, I didn't know a lot of this shit either. And, you know, when I think of a grave or a burial site in WoW, I just always thought of the graveyards. I didn't realize every single culture had different things and stuff. But again, the nuances of the old game are pretty amazing. Cool video overall from Nixio.